All right, and there we go. There is our color cube card with the palette on it. And here's the wet yarn. What do you think? Hello, welcome to the LoftyLoops Yarns YouTube channel. This is going to be a vlog where I walk through dyeing up all of the April color cube clubs on yarn and fiber. This is something I mentioned I wanted to do in my last podcast, and it's been a while since I filmed a vlog, so I thought this would be fun to do. And of course, it wouldn't be an actual vlog without showing you a little bit of what I'm working on. So here you can see all my little fiber bits that I have left over from a 2024 advent calendar. I've got 12 of these little bumps left, so I'm halfway through. But let's talk about what I will be dyeing. Here is the color cube card for April. It's got these beautiful warm tones in it, and I'm very excited. I always dye up a test batch first just to make sure I like the final product. So I've got that soaking. I've got some fiber soaking that I want to experiment with. So let's get this show going. Okay, I've got some organic Polworth laid out here. And this is less than ideal. I have one long, essentially fiber, whatever. I can't think of the word. But I didn't break it. I just laid it all out. It's 12 ounces of fiber. I'm going to be buying bigger pans, like flat, wider pans, so I can do this without, using these little 4-inch deep pans that I currently have, especially because with fiber I don't use as much water, so I can have shallower pans and then fit more wool in. But we're gonna try this out because I can stack these 2x2 in my oven. So we're gonna try this. I don't quite know how I'm gonna manage to pick it all up and put it in while they're I've got a little bit of fiber here, but I don't know. We're experimenting today. And then over here, I've got some wet fiber in the pan that I'm going to be dyeing my April yarn clubs with. So I've got 3 skeins of sock yarn right now, and then this one here on the right that's a little bit different in color. That is actually a 50% cotton, 50% superwash merino. So it is kind of a lighter cottony blend, still a fingering weight yarn, 4-ply, but it's going to be a little bit nicer for the warmer weather. So I haven't really dyed a whole lot of cotton, so again, just kind of experimenting through it in here. And let's see. So I've got my card laid out here, and in order to get the dark red color, I think what I'm going to do is combine a little bit of this Barn Red from ProChem, and this is a reactive dye, so fiber reactive dye. I think I'm going to combine it with, let's see, to darken that up a little bit, maybe some Teddy Bear Brown from Dharma. And again, this is an acid dye, same thing, not fiber reactive, but it still works on wool, silk, protein fibers, and nylon. So this technically isn't going to dye these plant-based fibers in the cotton. This will, because they're fiber reactive dyes. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. If it doesn't quite work like I think, I should have another dark brown in a fiber reactive that'll dye the plant-based. So let's see how this goes. Okay, that is definitely not as red as I'd like to see it. So there's probably a little bit too much of the Teddy Bear Brown in there, but we're gonna go with it. I'll add some red on top. It almost turned into kind of like a berry color, deep berry. Okay, so I've just poured on some of the Barn Red, and you can see it's much more red in tone. So whatever adding that brown did, it darkened it up too much. It's not what I was going for, but I'm just gonna squish this all out, make sure it really gets in there, and then add the next layer of color. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna add the red to the fiber. Okay, this is just the barn red. So you can see I should have started off with this color and not even worried about adding the brown to it because I like this color the way that it is. But for some reason I was thinking the last time I used it, it was a lot more vibrant red, whereas this is exactly the color that I wanted. So it matches really nice. For the second color, I'm going to use a little bit of the barn red, but then I'm going to add some saffron, I think, to pull those orange colors out. So let's do that. I'm gonna squish this in really well, kind of work that through. I am gonna put the next color on just in these light spots here, and then I'm going to heat it. And once all of this exhausts into the yarn, I'll pull it out, unwind it, and then I'm gonna add on the blue colors. But I'm gonna let all of this soak in to the yarn that is exposed. And actually, the more I'm manipulating the dye in the pan into this yarn, the more it's spreading into these undyed sections or the spots where I didn't pour, and I really like the color I'm getting here. So instead of mixing up another color of dye, I'm just gonna keep manipulating and spread that up there because that looks really nice. And that actually almost totally matches the next color. I'll show you here in a bit. So I'm just gonna keep manipulating. This is all superwash, so I don't need to worry about it felting or playing with it too much. The water is also room temp right now. It's not hot at all, which I find if I use room temperature water, it blends a lot nicer. It doesn't strike into the yarn and cause kind of those really intense spots. So you've got a little bit more play when it is cool or room temp. So I'm really liking this so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the next layer of color onto our fiber over here and then go from there. So here's what we have so far. So I've just got these first 3 colors here from the left added, and I think that looks pretty dang spot on. So, like I said, I'm gonna heat these, let all of this exhaust and adhere to the yarn, and then I'm gonna pull it all out. I will pull the yarn out, move it around, get to some of the undyed areas, and we're gonna add this light blue and the dark, kind of dusky denim blue, and then we'll reheat again. And over here, I've gone ahead and add the orange to the fiber. And then again, yeah, just squished, manipulated, spread it around. I am gonna go ahead and add the blue here though, because I do wanna heat all of this at once. I've got a lot of dyes out on my table, but also tons in my cabinet here. So if you know anything about me, you know that I love dyeing blues and purples. And so I have a lot of blues and purples. Like I said, the majority are out on my table right now, but I'm just kind of looking to see what I have. I love this Wedgwood blue, but it's feeling pretty empty and I don't have a backup currently. Peacock blue is going to be a little bit too vibrant. Kingfisher blue, same thing. Clear sky might be a decent one. It is also fiber reactive, so it'll work on the cotton. Faded denim actually might be fantastic for that color. We will see. Some of these I haven't used in a long time. Baby Blue Eyes is a go-to for me. It's just a really nice blue base. You can see some of these have been used a lot. But again, not fiber reactive. Sea Glass is a bit too green. Robin's Egg is, again, a bit too tealy blue. One thing I liked to do when I was originally starting to dye was I got one of their posters that shows all of their colors on it. And so I went and cut up each one and then taped it to the top of the canisters when I could, so I could see really quickly what colors I was working with. And then as I open a new one, I just replace the old cap onto the new bottle. But yeah, I've kind of fallen off doing that, and I should probably do it again because some of these I know the colors for sure. The other ones I don't necessarily know. But yeah, we're gonna try Faded Denim, I think. we're gonna try this. And since we're trying it on the fiber first, I'm not super concerned because this fiber is not gonna be repeatable. So if it doesn't exactly turn out the way I want it, it's still gonna be okay. I would rather get the yarn exactly how I want it because it is a club colorway and it will be repeatable. So let's use the fiber to play around with some of these colors. So I'm gonna grab faded denim and one other one that's already out on my table. So I've got my faded denim here. Blued steel I also use a ton. It's the most beautiful navy blue. Delphinium blue, also fantastic. It's kind of a purpley blue. This one gives me a lot of fits though. It doesn't always play nice, and that's too purpley for today. This is all a mess. I really need to go through all of these and get them reorganized and put away, but I tend to just die in chaos and then it all just sits here, which is not the best. This is a giant thing of Bahama blue. Again, kind of like it's a very this color blue, which is too intense for what I'm doing today. So I think, honestly, I think this faded denim is gonna be best case. So let's try that out and see what it looks like. One thing I like to do to test the color before I put it on any fiber or yarn is to take and dip a paper towel in. That's looking really bright blue. Let me put it up next to the card. So yeah, too bright blue, so I need to dull it down a little bit, darken it up a little bit. And since this is more of a gray tone, I think I'm going to use maybe some silver gray. I'm gonna add that to the dye stock and see. Okay, I ended up adding some silver gray to make it a little bit more gray. And then I did end up adding a teensy bit of blued steel to really darken it up. So let's see what it looks like now. Ooh, that's much better. See how that's super bright blue? This one is much more dusky and dark. And that is exactly what I was going for. I'm gonna squish this and kind of manipulate the dye and the liquid up to get the undyed spot, but I don't want it traveling too far into the orange because I don't want it to turn into kind of a muddy brown color. So I'm being very gentle. And a little bit of that, see here, is gonna be inevitable. It just is the way that it is. And I need to figure out how I'm gonna dye this blue as well. But just gonna go ahead and manipulate all of this. Squish it in really well. This is non-superwash, so this fiber will felt if I'm not super careful with it. So just ever so gently squishing the water around. Just really getting in there. I think it just went into my glove, it's fine. Honestly, the only reason I'm wearing a glove today is because I've got y'all with me. Usually I just go in hands first and don't even care, but you should always wear gloves and always wear a mask with ventilators whenever working with these dye powders because they are toxic. Okay, so I've got the fiber already. I just took a spoon and kind of scooped up some of the dye water or the dye bath and kind of just put it on here. I don't super love that, but I'm gonna come back to this because in my very limited experience of dyeing fibers, this looks really dark saturated right now, but as it exhausts into the yarn and kind of adheres to the yarn, it ends up, plus especially when it's dry, it ends up being much lighter. So I think I'm gonna heat this, let it sit. I'm gonna flip all of this over very carefully and then do the other sides and probably put another layer on just to make sure it's super nice, dark, deep, saturated colors. Again, super new to dyeing fiber, so this is all just experimentation. Let's see, okay. Yes, so I've got everything heating in the oven. My hands are already a mess, as you can tell. I wanted to address what I mentioned in my last podcast about doing these dye studio hangouts, having it be behind a paywall. You know, you have to be a member of the YouTube channel. I don't know if that necessarily sits right with me. While I do think it would be valid to do, because making videos takes time and energy, right? And I do want to be not necessarily compensated for that, but it would be nice. Also, I did it in the spirit of kind of not gatekeeping and sharing my process. And I feel like putting that behind a paywall kind of, I don't know, makes it not accessible to just people that want to learn. Granted, I have been doing this for many, many years now. And when I started, I did not use the stuff that I have now. This has been built up over many years in the business. When I first started, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this plenty of times, but I was using Kool-Aid and a crock pot or my microwave or things that weren't toxic, right? They were food safe. And so I would use my normal pots and pans just to play and kind of play with color. As it expanded, obviously I got all of the non-food safe things, and then the pans, all of my utensils, all of that's kept completely for the business only. It's never brought back into the house to use for anything else. So that is why I'm okay sharing this stuff, but also know you don't need this stuff in order to just, if you just want to play around and kind of see what it's like to put, you know, color on yarn. You don't need all this stuff. So that being said, I don't necessarily think I'm gonna do, if I do something along the lines of like a master class or a really in-depth tutorial or something like that, I might put that behind a paywall, but I think I decided just to make this more vloggy and just chit-chatty and that kind of stuff. Clearly I didn't prep myself at all, as you can see, but all that being said, I've told you what colors I was using or what dyes I was using. Most of those come from Dharma, some of them come from ProChem. Dharma is pretty much my go-to, but every now and again I have been known to use jacquard dyes, and that's actually what I started off with because my local yarn shop carried jacquard, and so I didn't have to put in an online order. I could just go pick some up to play. Bases I get from various places. The one in particular that I'm playing around with, that wool cotton yarn, is a sample skein from Wool to Dye For, and I've had this forever and I just haven't used it. So I'm even hoping that they still carry this base. I haven't looked. I've had this sample skein for ages. But here's the little doodle that came on it. So it is a wool cotton yarn 4-ply fingering, and it is wooltodyefor.com. I get a lot of my bases there. I'm trying to diversify and not get so many bases there for very specific reasons I'm not going to go into in this vlog. That is pretty much related to the industry itself and probably doesn't really need to be here on the channel. But it's a great resource for undyed yarn. I will say you usually have to have a wholesale account with them, otherwise it does get pretty pricey. But if you don't care, or you just want to buy one bag, it's gonna cost you, if it's just one, you won't get the wholesale discounts, but it is available. So that is where I'm getting this. My sock yarn used to get there, have started getting it from Nomad Yarns now instead. It's really comparable. Yeah, again, not going to go into reasons, but trying to diversify a little bit. There has also been just issues like inventory issues, especially through COVID and things like that, where we were having a lot of inventory problems. And so if I had regulated all of my bases to come from one place and they weren't getting any in from their suppliers, then I was kind of SOL. So I've definitely learned a lesson since then, to where, like I said, I want to diversify. I want to have backup options. So if one place doesn't have a certain base, I can go somewhere else and get something that's very comparable. So Yeah, just wanted a little chit chat there. I'm gonna let the oven heat for quite a while. I probably won't get back to it until later tonight, possibly even tomorrow morning, because it is already later in the day and I wanna make sure that that has plenty of time to heat through. The fiber, because I'm sure I'll get asked, the fiber I can't even tell you where I got it from because I'm just playing. So sometimes I went on Etsy to find like a pound of certain comb tops. Other times, I think Paradise Fibers is a really great place to grab spinning fibers. Kind of a big, not a big box store, but it's not hand dyed, I don't believe. If it is, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But Paradise Fibers is a fantastic place to buy spinning equipment and spinning fiber. They had some undyed, just plain white, so I'm pretty sure I got some there just to play with. And again, I just wanted to play with different bases, different fiber types. So the stuff I have in right now is organic Polworth. I do have some Rambouillet that I'm really excited to dye. I've done some superwash and non-superwash merino. So just playing and getting a feel for it. And I'm kind of in my spinning era, so I thought how fun would it be to start dyeing some. I will say it's not as fun as dyeing yarn for me personally, so I don't know that I'll ever make it a big part of my business. I'll leave that up to the people that dye it and dye it really well. So for now I'm just playing, and as I play, I'm either keeping the braids that I dye or they're going up into the shop as just like one-off listings. So keep an eye open for those if that's something you're into. And again, just know that they're experiments. They're fun. They're fun experiments, but they'll still spin up. They'll still spin into something unless I completely felt them. Then at that point, they are just, I don't know what they're going to become, but they definitely won't make it to the shop. So, all right, enough chit chatting. I'm going to get back to my sock whip. It is the next morning, and this cooked for quite a while yesterday, and then I let it sit in my hot oven all night. And this morning I took it out. I've just added some more water with some extra citric acid to it, just to help those dyes set when I put it back in to reheat. And I think this is flipped. It did a really good job actually getting all the way through. I'd like to see this a little bit darker, and maybe the blue a little bit darker, but I feel like it did a pretty dang good job of saturating all of the fiber. So I'm going to take a little bit different approach. I think I'm going to speckle some of these colors on top and then mush it in, as opposed to making more dye solution and dumping it in. I did, like I said, I added more water. So there's definitely water in the pan again, and we'll see what happens with that. Okay, I've speckled on faded denim, saffron, and that barn red. So now I'm just going to smush it in, taking care to not transfer the colors around too much. And since this is room temp again, the dye will spread out nicely as opposed to striking right away. All right, now I'm gonna put them back in, let them heat back up, and then hang out in the oven to set. I also pulled out the pan from yesterday, and this is it after setting all night. So you can see those colors look fantastic. Here you can tell that cotton dyes a little bit more muted, less vibrant than the superwash merino. But yeah, it's still gonna be really nice. So since this is cool, I'm going to untwist it, lay it back down in the pan how I want it. I'm gonna put it back in so it gets nice and hot, because when I add the blue for the next couple colors, I want it to strike right away as opposed to kind of mixing in with what we've already done. So I wanna make sure those blues really pop. So I need the yarn nice and hot when I do that. So Gonna undo these, pop them back in, and then I'll pull them back out a little bit later. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I untwisted it. I made sure to lay a lot of the undyed portion up towards the top, so when I go to pour the blue on, it gets most of these empty spaces. Some overlap will happen, it will, and that's okay. That's all part of the plan, but this is what it looks like right now, and it's actually really pretty on its own, so I'm curious to see what happens when I add that blue on top. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and reheat this, and then I'll check back with you in a bit. Okay, I've got my hot yarn out. I've got my faded denim, blued steel, silver gray mixture here. Go ahead and stir this up really well, and then I'm gonna pour it on the yarn. I'm glad I tested the blue out on the fiber because now I know how I wanted the yarn combination to be, or the dye combination to be for the yarn. I'm just gonna pour it on ever so slightly. And really get into some of those undyed areas. And I don't want it to muddy up too much, which is why I wanted to make sure the yarn was hot. Okay. Now I'm gonna grab a glove and I'm gonna kind of squish it in and mix it around a bit. All right, and there we go. There is our color cube card with the palette on it. And here's the wet yarn. What do you think? Did we get it? Did we nail it? I can't wait to see these dry. So this is going back in, and if all turns out well and I'm happy with the dry results, I'll go ahead and do a few more pans and then check to see what other ones I need to dye for the ones that were club spots that were purchased. It is a few days later after I've dyed the clubs that you've seen. I did put in an order. Wow, that's a lot of bubble. I put in an order for some helpful stuff out in the studio. Okay, I feel like this might not be by full order. That's silly, there's one pan in here. Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned dyeing the fiber in those two pans that I normally use. This is just one large, wide, flat pan that I can lay down the fiber on. I'm gonna go see if this fits in my oven. I swear I ordered more, but we'll see. Good news, it fits. So I'll be able to lay out more fiber at once on this shallow pan, and then the way I dye the fiber, I don't have a whole lot of liquid like I do when I dye yarn. So yeah, this will be great. And then I won't have to do the weird split in between, and yeah, like y'all saw. So very excited about this. I only purchased the one to start with just because I wasn't sure it was gonna fit or work out. So after I use this one a few times, I'll likely grab a few more. And I did in fact get something else that appears to have shipped separately. So that's kind of a bummer. But once that shows up, I will share that with you as well, because I'm all about upgrading things slowly to make everything more efficient. And this is definitely one of those ways. Yay! And to give you a quick update, here is the yarn. It's almost dry. It's still a little damp here on the ends. I need to bring out my dehumidifier. But yeah, I'm so excited to get this all twisted up. You can see here, this is the cotton merino, where it's much more muted, less vibrant than the merino nylon. So that's interesting. It gives it a completely different vibe. Yeah, it's also really nice. And then I've got the fiber laid out over here. It is almost dry. It did get a little like cramped, so I'm gonna have to fluff it back up once it's dry, and then I'll braid it and all the things. But right now it's just one long piece of top the way I dyed it, so that's looking really good. And you can see just how much lighter it is than the yarn, and that's what I was talking about. Yeah, so it's pretty dry, but I'm gonna let it sit for probably the rest of the day, and then yeah, hopefully I'll be able to show you the finished product very soon. Here is the yarn, all dried, all twisted up. I already have one that I caked up because I started a sock already. It is quite a few days later. This club is actually going to be closing on Sunday. So as you see it, the next Sunday, I'm going to be closing the club. And I left it open just a little bit longer this month because I wanted to get this video out, and it took me forever to even share the reveals and stuff. And so I'm leaving it open just a little bit longer. But this is the sock base, my Lofty sock base. It is a 2-ply 80/20, and I love those deep barn reds. You can really see where that orange came into play, and the lighter tans. It's getting a bit blown out because of the lighting outside, but then we've got these lovely denim blues. They're faded denim that just came through so nicely. So I love that. You can see here, this is the cotton blend, and it's definitely more muted, not as saturated, especially compared to the sock. It doesn't speak to me. That's not saying it's not beautiful, but I love the vibrant, punchy colors of hand-dyed yarn. I might knit something with it just to test the base out, but I don't know, just because of the way it dyed up with these colors, I don't know that this is a base that I would want to carry all the time. Like I said, I like the punchy colors, and this just isn't bringing me joy, I guess. And I don't want to dye anything that doesn't bring me joy, because then I feel like that translates, right? But something that does bring me so much joy is the finished braids, which you have seen already as I was fluffing them back up. But I did go ahead and braid up one of them. This I'm keeping for myself. It's beautiful. I love the way these colors came out. I've added a little card there so I can remember what the blend is and all the things. Like I said, this one I am keeping for myself to play with, but I will have 2 braids that I've put up a little bit differently, just not still braided, just not spiraled. I folded them instead because they fit the bands a little bit nicer. So I will be listing these. I've got 2 of them to put in the shop when I list the extras from the April Club, which usually happens the first week of the following month. So likely the first week of May, I will be adding these 2 extra braids. Caveat, are they the nicest that they could be ever? No, because like this was an experiment, right? So we were learning and playing. So keep that in mind. If you want to grab some of these, it might not be as amazing as some of the other people that have been dyeing fiber and do it really, really well for years. But yeah, if you are into this color and you're like, you just want to play too, then by all means, I will toss these into the shop. And let me grab this beautiful cake. I haven't even got the first round cast on the needles yet. So I will hopefully maybe take a snippet a little bit later once I get really going into the sock, just to add to the end of this vlog, because I know y'all want to see it worked up. But if I don't end up getting it there, keep an eye on Instagram, because I will definitely be sharing some over there. So let me grab that. As I was editing the vlog, I actually caked up and just barely started casting on for the sock. So here is the beautiful cake. And I am using my Lofty sock base because it is my favorite for socks. But isn't that so pretty? I'm still waiting on a delivery for the other bases that I need, and some of the minis. So I will get those dyed up as well. Yeah, it should be here. I don't know, it says sometime this afternoon. So really excited for that. So once I close down the April club, I'll go through, tally everything up, and then start dyeing as soon as I close it down. And then those will actually ship out next week. So they will include minis if people ordered sock sets. And I, again, will share that, I'm sure, on Instagram, because I'll keep a mini for myself and use it for heels and toes. All right, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I hope it was inspiring, entertaining. I hope you learned something. And I don't know, it's been fun. It was fun to record the whole process. I don't know whether I'll do this every single month with every club, but if it's something that you guys like, I can definitely do more of it. I realized this vlog ended up being quite long, but I talked a lot, right? I talked through a lot of my process and then dyeing the fiber. That was really fun. So hope you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, please like the video. I would love that, and leave a comment down below. Just give me your favorite dessert emoji, since the Color Cube Club was this beautiful, yummy looking cheesecake. I don't even know what it was. It looked yummy. That's all I know. So leave me your favorite dessert emoji in the comments below, and I appreciate y'all so much for watching. I will chat, I will do something at you very soon. Until then, bye y'all.